ultimate game changer, I went with Ricky Pearsall. He wasn't quite the game changer I really expected him to be. Was banged up toward the beginning of the year. Showed it in the Florida State game. I wasn't expecting that game in and game out, but maybe something close to that. Not saying I was really disappointed with him. I expected Anthony Richardson to be a better quarterback. I thought Ricky Pearsall would be one of the bigger benefactors of that. He was not being as AR was, kind of holding those receivers back just in some form. And so, ultimate game changer, I will go with. He started at game one, won the game for the Gators. Amari Burney was around the turnovers, a lot of the turnovers for this Gator defense. I thought he improved so much in his final season as a Gator, and just around so many turnovers, a ball hawk there for that Gator defense. So, probably could have went Anthony Richardson still in some form or fashion there for the game changer for the Gators, but just to change it up just a little bit, I'm going to Amari Burney.
I don't want to say who I picked as the game changer. So I picked Patrick Toney as my game changer. So here's what I wrote. I said I've picked both the over for points, the under for sacks. If the defense is going to prove me wrong, it's because the upgrade from Grantham to Toney is about as significant as it gets. And now I'm talking about he needs to have a 20-point per game performance next year or he's out. I mean, I guess you could call him a game changer in that every time the opposing offense got the ball, the score changed.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do it that way. So, man, is that a bad pick given what we saw this year and given the lack of improvement that we saw? If I was going to pick my game changer, I think I'd pick Osiris Torrance. Okay. You think about a guy who didn't give up any sacks. Obviously, Anthony Richardson did a really nice job of helping the offense in terms of being able to prevent those sacks. But Torrance didn't give up any sacks. He's going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL. He came from, the Sun Belt to the SEC and still dominated in the SEC. And he was a big part of an offensive line that dominated the nation in running. They were like 4th or 5th overall in yards per attempt in the running game. Etienne and Montreal Johnson had holes to run through when they needed a couple of yards. They did it behind Osiris Torrance. And when you think about the Utah game, the biggest one of the year, where were they running when Richardson was running those direct runs towards the end of the game to get the first downs and the touchdowns? They were running the right-hand side of the unit, and that was what they did all year long. And obviously when Torrance missed the bowl game, everything fell apart. I mean, it was the same offensive line, just no Osiris Torrance, and everything went to hell. Now, obviously, you got a different quarterback, you got different motivation, you got 2 of those offensive linemen who are out there have decided to enter the transfer portal. So there was a lot of stuff going on, I'm sure, heading into that game. But still, you start thinking about the difference that guy makes. Look, an all-American guard coming from the Sun Belt to the SEC, I think it's a pretty big deal. He was the guy who I think when you look at Florida, the bright spots on the team, Torrance is the one who just shines to me.
All right, best tandem, and I remember saying you could probably go with the running back room in some combo, but I wanted to change it up. I went Kingsley and Osiris to do that, and okay, I got Osiris right, and Kingsley I think took a step back this year, but I think you probably could have went. I think you have to go running backs. I didn't want to go running backs because I thought it was obvious, and I think it's obvious even after the season. The best tandem are Montreal Johnson and Trevor Etienne. You have to go with those guys as the best tandem there for the Gators. The run game, surprising definitely with Trevor Etienne coming through as a true freshman, as somebody they could count on right away. We saw it game 1. We saw a difference maker that he was. And the speed, he gets to the outside, makes people miss. I still remember that jump cut that he had versus Kentucky, leaving the guys socks on the field right there with Trevor Etienne and Montreal Johnson. The biggest question was, could he transfer his game from the Sun Belt to the SEC? And hey, he did a pretty good job there. Did Montreal Johnson. Best tandem, no doubt, goes to Montreal Johnson, Trevor Etienne.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of a tandem you would go to anywhere else. I mean, I don't think you can do it on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think you can do it. I mean, you're not going to do it at the wide receiver. You're not going to do it at quarterback. You're not going to do it at tight end. So it's got to be the running back. So
and I think if you wanted to go, you could probably, when he was in there, when they played together, because Tarquin got hurt, you could probably go Osiris and Barber.
Maybe.
But still.
Well, preseason I had picked Rashad Torrance and Trevez Johnson. So not so much.
Oh, there you go. I didn't remember that one. Ooh, I remember the Patrick Toney one as soon as you said it, but oof, there we go. Keep the oof
Yeah.
in this one.
So really the lesson is go to Vegas after our next over under episode and just anybody I've picked to succeed, just be like, nope, other guy.
Breakout player. Hey, I thought it would continue from the spring game. Tyreek Sapp didn't quite break out. I mean, he got a lot of playing time there for the Gators along the defensive front, but didn't really break out like I thought he would. Austin Barber, Trevor Etienne. I think that's your breakout player as well.
ETN is the guy. I
Yeah.
mean, ETN showed all SEC capability, showed an elite ability to sort of make the small play where you need 3 yards and be able to make a guy miss and get that 3 yards. The guy I had picked was Keon Zipperer. I just sort of assumed that Xanders was maybe gonna take some catches away from him early, but that eventually Zipperer's physical skills were going to take over. We saw that in the Tennessee game. I mean, that play he made against Tennessee was just unbelievable. Just being able to run through the defense, and then you just wonder where was that all year long. And obviously had some injury issues and wasn't always out there playing. But I remember Zipper having a very similar play against Georgia back in 2020. It was sort of the thing that got Florida going after they fell behind 14-0. And so the thought process was, and even this year after I saw that play against Tennessee where he bulldozed into the end zone, I'm like, yeah, we're finally getting Zipper going. Like this is the start of something. And then it just never turned into anything. So, look, I think Napier's still going to want to feature his tight ends. I think hopefully there's going to be a quarterback who can get it to the tight ends on a more regular basis than Florida was able to get last year. But it just never converted, right? I mean, it's been that way. Zipper committed from Lakeland, and we've always sort of been waiting for him to break out. There was no shame in being behind Kyle Pitts, and really there wasn't any shame being behind Kamori Gamble. But you think about the amount of productivity that Florida got from his tight ends this year, and it is disappointing that Zipper wasn't able to step in there and be a highly, highly productive player at that tight end position.
All right, last one to wrap it up here. No respect. This one this one hurt for me. Will I said Britton Cox Jr. No respect there. So midway throughout the season, he's dismissed from the team. And hey, look, I brought his name up earlier. I'm gonna say Amari Burney, just because the defense. Hey, look, don't get me wrong, defense was terrible. I thought he took a step this year. Stats show he took a step this year. He wasn't the liability that he was in previous years. And don't get me wrong, I know that probably doesn't speak a whole lot to a lot of people on a bad defense, but being involved in a lot of the turnovers on defense, having the game winning. Look, that Utah game is going to be tough for any linebacker. We saw it all season. We saw Utah's tight ends do that to almost every team they played. It was going to be a bad matchup there for a Gator linebacker, specifically Amari Burney. Comes through with the game-winning play in the biggest game of the season, or biggest win for the season for the Gators. And no respect. And probably still labeled that way. Amari Burney on his way out from the Gators. That's where I'll go.
Yeah, the guy I had for no respect, and I think he actually sort of lived up to it, though had some injuries towards the end of the year. I had Justin Shorter. He had 81 career catches coming in, 41 last year, and we thought he was going to be asked to step into a larger role. Had very similar stats to a guy, Terrace Marshall, who was at LSU. And so, hey, look, this is a 5-star recruit who hasn't quite lived up to the billing, and I think people sort of written him off. He was really effective this year. So in 2021, he had 41 catches for 550 yards. This year he had 29 catches, but for 577. He was a deep threat. He was the 75-yard pass against LSU to open that game.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very effective player when he was out there. He had some drop problems, especially early on in his career here at Florida. Didn't have many of those issues at all this year. He was able to go get a ball. There was that 4th down against Tennessee where they decided to chuck it up to him, and he sort of came back to it and was able to leap over the defender and make the catch. And it just makes me wonder how much of sort of the limitations that we've seen for Shorter the last 2 years have been due to quarterback, and how much of them have actually been due to Shorter. Because I honestly thought he played very well this year till the end when he got nicked up and just wasn't in there very often. But I would have loved to have seen a 45 catch season averaging 20 yards per reception. But, the knock on Shorter that I always had was in 2020, he averaged 10.7 yards per attempt, or 10.7 yards per catch. In 2021, he averaged 13.4. This year, he averaged 19.9. So he went from that sort of possession receiver who gets the little swing pass and then is asked to beat people and really isn't all that successful at that, and you get maybe 4 or 5, 6 yards, to a guy who was a downfield threat and was able to make plays on the outside. I think he's a guy who's going to end up in the NFL, who's going to have a role. I don't know that he's going to be a star receiver in the NFL, but I think he's going to have a role as an outside receiver who can go get the ball, especially in the red zone. And he showed the ability to do that this year.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month, get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shoutouts, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today.